Morning guys, today I'm gonna show you a couple of methods to recognize fake SSDs. So without further ado, let's get started with the video. So what are fake SSDs? Well, as the name implies, fake SSDs are just that. These low-speed drives are disguised as full-fledged SSDs by being placed in SSD cases and often incorporate eMMC storage. A few TF cards or micro SD cards attached to a controller board that appears as an SSD when inserted into a computer may sometimes be showed up as a real SSD. Although eMMC storage isn't inherently inferior to SSDs, it is much less reliable, has a smaller storage capacity, and cannot transport data as quickly. The same holds true for TF card-filled fake SSDs. It is possible to design these drives to display fake capacity and in certain situations, to behave appropriately. This implies that as soon as the fake SSD's real capacity begins to fill up, it will begin overriding any older data if it is originally configured with a 64 GB capacity but has been reprogrammed to indicate a 1 TB capacity. This indicates that counterfeit SSDs are a data security nightmare that in most situations will result in irreversible data loss. Their performance is likewise poor. They often exhibit data transfer rates that are comparable to or lower than those of hard disk drives. Not to mention, they may malfunction without any prior notice or indication, making them a trustworthiness catastrophe. Examining the specifications and packing closely is one of the first stages in figuring out if an SSD is real or not. Fake SSDs often arrive in poor packaging with crazy specifications, a sensation of cheapness to the touch, or a lot of misspellings. An SSD from an unknown company, for instance, that sells for $10 and advertises 512 GB of capacity and 15 Gbps of data transfer speed is probably a fake one. A lot of fake SSDs are also sold under well-known brand names, such as Western Digital, Kingston, Crucial, Samsung, and Micron, to mention a few. In some situations, even the box may seem flawless, yet the specifications may be completely inaccurate. Still, you can distinguish these fakes from authentic SSDs mostly based on the price at which they are offered for sale. It's one thing to get a decent bargain on a pricey drive like the Samsung 970 EVO Plus, but something is definitely off if you're paying the same amount for it as a 64 GB SD card. Lastly, serial numbers for branded SSDs are also provided. You may verify them on the manufacturer's website. Your SSD is almost definitely a fake if its serial number is either missing or does not match up with the manufacturer's database. The important thing to remember is to go over the drive specs, physically check the packaging if you can, and make sure nothing seems suspicious or too good to be true. Physically examining the drive is the second step. You may tell you have a fake SSD when the disk feels too light or has an enclosure that feels poor. Additionally, fake SSDs can feel a touch flimsy whereas real items typically have a robust feel. You may get a solid sense of the drive's genuineness by physically examining it. This provides a little amount of tactile input. It's also a good idea to check the distribution stamp on your drive, since these stamps may simply be used to verify the legitimacy of a drive. On the other hand, there's a strong possibility that the drive is fake if the distribution stamps are absent from the rear of the drive or are smeared and incorrect. The presence of NAND chips and a polished disk surface are two further red flags to watch out for. The majority of branded drives have a shiny exterior. Although it has no effect on the drive's performance, a matte finished drive may be a sign of fakery and cost cutting. In addition, NAND cells are found on the majority of M.2 SSDs. The presence of NAND cells might help confirm that your drive is an SSD and not merely a TF card or eMMC enclosure, even if their precise count is irrelevant for legitimacy. The most reliable methods for determining whether a drive is genuine or fake are software analysis and actual use of the drive. All you need for this are a few large files and some common sense, not fancy programs or intricate terminal instructions. To start, examine the data transfer rates by copying a few big files to the disk. To determine if you're receiving excellent data transfer speeds, compare the speeds you're obtaining with those of comparable drives in the same price range. You may proceed as long as you're not falling behind too much. Attempting to run a few apps or games on the SSD you're evaluating is another option. Reduced speed and longer loading times in games will almost immediately reveal the fake drive. You may also verify whether the drive really has the capacity it claims by loading a few large games onto it. As previously stated, when old data approaches its storage limitations, smaller drives that are configured to seem with larger capacity when connected into a computer replace old data. Hence, you may have issues later on when trying to start the game since not all of the necessary data are on the drive if you are moving a 150 GB game to a 64 GB fake SSD that is set up to display 1 TB as its capacity. But keep in mind that just because all data were transferred successfully or because you were unable to confirm the SSD's storage capacity does not, however, imply that it is a genuine SSD. Alright guys, that's all from me today. I hope you can now recognize a fake SSD and save your precious money and time. Thanks for watching, see you in the next video.